Before we begin, please remember that the information in this video is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not a career counselor or financial advisor. Any decision you make regarding your career should be discussed with qualified professionals who can assess your individual situation. This presentation is not intended as a substitute for professional advice. The alarm goes off. It's 6:15 a.m. on a Monday. For a split second, there's peace. Then, reality hits you like a tidal wave. Not a gentle lapping at the shore, but a full-force, debris-filled surge of dread. Your heart rate quickens. Your stomach ties itself into a tight, anxious knot. You're not thinking about the exciting projects ahead. You're not thinking about collaborating with your brilliant colleagues. You're thinking about the 47 unread emails that bred over the weekend. You're thinking about that one passive-aggressive comment from your boss last Thursday. You're thinking about the soul-crushing commute and the fluorescent lights that seem to suck the very life out of you. You hit snooze. Just 9 more minutes of escape. Does any of that sound familiar? For millions of Americans, this isn't just a case of the Monday blues. It's a daily reality, a slow, grinding erosion of their passion, their energy, and their sense of self. We've been told to follow your passion, but also to be grateful you have a job. We're caught between the dream of meaningful work and the very real pressure of paying the mortgage, putting food on the table, and navigating the most volatile and rapidly changing job market in modern history. The result? A state of career paralysis. You feel stuck. You know something is wrong, deeply wrong, but the thought of making a change is so overwhelming, so terrifying, that it feels easier to just hit snooze again. But what if you had a map? What if you had a clear, objective set of signals to look for? What if you could cut through the noise of fear and uncertainty and diagnose the health of your career with confidence? That's exactly what we're going to do right now. We're going to move beyond vague feelings and give you a concrete framework, a diagnostic tool. Together, we are going to break down the 5 critical, undeniable signs that it's time for a career change in the current American job market. This isn't about recklessly quitting your job tomorrow. This is about giving you the clarity you need to make the right decision for your future. So let's dive into the very first sign, and it's a big one. Sign number 1. The Sunday scaries have consumed your entire weekend. We all know the meme. The picture of a cartoon character crying under the covers with the caption "Me on Sunday night, thinking about Monday morning." We laugh, we share it because it's relatable. But there's a massive difference between a fleeting moment of, ugh, the weekend's over, and a pervasive weekend-long anxiety that steals your joy. This is the first and most visceral sign your job isn't just a bad fit. It's actively harming your well-being. Think about it. Your weekend is supposed to be your time to recharge. It's your time for family, for hobbies, for rest. But for you, maybe it's become a 2-day countdown to misery. It starts subtly on Saturday afternoon. A little thought about an upcoming deadline pops into your head. You push it away. But then on Sunday morning, it's there when you wake up. A low-grade hum of anxiety. By Sunday afternoon, that hum has become a roar. You can't enjoy a movie, a dinner with friends, or even playing with your kids because a part of your brain is already at your desk, bracing for impact. By Sunday night, you might be experiencing actual physical symptoms. Insomnia, a racing heart, irritability, even a sense of panic. This isn't just not liking your job. This is your nervous system telling you that you are in a sustained state of fight or flight. A 2021 study by the Conference Board revealed that less than half of American workers reported being satisfied with their jobs. But this goes deeper than satisfaction. It's about chronic stress. When your work environment is the primary source of that stress, your body and mind don't get a chance to recover. Your weekend is no longer a sanctuary. It's just the waiting room for the next work week. You are living in a 5-day-a-week trauma, with a brief 48-hour parole where you're too anxious to even enjoy your freedom. If the thought of your job actively ruins the time you're supposed to be living your life, that is not a sign to ignore. It's a blaring red alert siren telling you that a fundamental change is necessary for your long-term health and happiness. Now let's move on to the second sign, which is less about your feelings and more about your future. Sign number 2. Your skills are stagnating and your learning has flatlined. Think of your professional skill set like the operating system on your smartphone. When it's new, it's fast, efficient, and can run all the latest apps. But what happens if you stop updating it? After a year, it starts to feel a little sluggish. After 2 years, some new apps won't even install. After 5 years, it's a security risk and functionally obsolete. In the 21st century American job market, the same principle applies to your career, but the updates are required much faster. Ask yourself this question and be brutally honest. When was the last time you learned a new marketable skill at your job? Not a new internal process or how to use a new piece of proprietary software that only your company uses. I mean a real transferable skill that would make you more valuable to another employer. If you have to think about it for more than 10 seconds, you have a problem. Many of us fall into the comfort trap. The job is easy. We know how to do it with our eyes closed. We can perform our duties on autopilot. We mistake this comfort for security. In reality, it's the most dangerous place a professional can be. You might be busy, drowning in emails, back-to-back meetings, endless reports, but being busy is not the same as growing. It's like running on a treadmill. You're sweating, you're putting in the effort, but you're not actually going anywhere. The World Economic Forum has reported that over half of all employees will need significant reskilling by 2025. Think about that. The skills that make you competent today could be irrelevant in the blink of an eye. We're seeing it everywhere. AI is transforming marketing. Automation is changing manufacturing and logistics. Data analytics is becoming a core requirement in fields from finance to healthcare. If your current role has you doing the same tasks you were doing 3, 4, or 5 years ago, you are not just standing still, you are actively moving backward relative to the market. You are becoming professionally obsolete. A good job, a true career-building role, should feel a little bit uncomfortable. It should stretch you. It should force you to learn to adapt to solve new problems. It should offer training, mentorship, or opportunities to work on projects that push your boundaries. If your job has become a comfortable cage where your primary skill is just knowing the system, you're not in a career. You're in a holding pattern. And in today's economy, a holding pattern is a direct flight to irrelevance. Recognizing this stagnation isn't a reason to panic. It's a reason to get excited. It's a signal that your potential is being wasted. And there's a world of opportunity out there where you can learn, grow, and build a future-proof career. And that brings us to our second, and perhaps most visceral sign that it's time for a career change. Your body is keeping score, and it's telling you it's losing. This isn't about having a tough week or feeling a little stressed before a big presentation. This is the chronic, soul-leeching exhaustion that settles deep in your bones. It's the Sunday night dread that starts as a faint whisper in the afternoon and builds into a roaring anxiety by the time you go to bed. It's when your physical and mental health are waving a giant, red flag, begging you to pay attention. Let me tell you about a guy named David. David was a project manager at a fast-growing tech startup. By all external measures, he was crushing it. He was a rising star, praised for his ability to handle impossible deadlines and juggle multiple high-stakes projects. He thrived on the adrenaline. First, the late nights fueled by cold pizza and energy drinks felt like a badge of honor. He was building something. He was important. He told himself the constant tightness in his chest was just excitement, the headaches were from staring at the screen too long, and the fact that he couldn't sleep through the night was just his mind optimizing solutions while he rested. But slowly, insidiously, the hustle started to curdle. The excitement was replaced by a constant, low-grade agitation. He'd find himself snapping at his partner over something as simple as what to watch on TV. He stopped going to the gym because he was just too tired. The hobbies that used to recharge him, like hiking or playing his guitar, just felt like more items on a to-do list he couldn't face. His body was sending him signals. The occasional headache became a near-daily migraine. He developed acid reflux that no amount of antacids could soothe. He was living in a state of perpetual fight or flight, and his system was starting to break down. The wake-up call wasn't some dramatic movie scene. It was quiet. It was a Tuesday morning. He was sitting in his car in the office parking lot, staring at the building, and he couldn't make himself get out. His hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles were white. He felt a profound, overwhelming sense of dread. It wasn't about the specific tasks waiting for him on his desk. It was about the place itself. The air inside, the fluorescent lights, the relentless ping of Slack notifications. It all felt like a threat. And in that moment, he realized this wasn't success. This was survival. And he was barely doing that. David's story is incredibly common in the American job market. We've been conditioned to see burnout as a necessary byproduct of ambition. But let's be crystal clear. Burnout is not a badge of honor. It is a state of profound emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by prolonged or excessive stress. It's the slow-motion car crash of your well-being. Normal stress can be a motivator. It's the pressure that helps you perform, that gives you the energy to meet a challenge. But when that stress becomes chronic, when there is no relief, no recovery period, your body's alarm system gets stuck in the on position. Your brain starts pumping out cortisol, the stress hormone, day after day. This isn't just a feeling. It has real physiological consequences. Chronic high cortisol can lead to inflammation, high blood pressure, a weakened immune system, anxiety, depression, and significant cognitive impairment. That brain fog you feel? That's not you being lazy or incompetent. That's your brain under siege, struggling to perform basic functions like memory recall and decision-making. The very job that demands you be sharp and focused is actively making you dull and scattered. Your body is screaming what your mind is too afraid to admit. This is unsustainable. The price of this paycheck is your health. So what do you do if you're David sitting in that car feeling trapped? The first step isn't to draft a resignation letter. The first step is to become a detective of your own life. You need to conduct a burnout audit. For the next 2 weeks, take 5 minutes at the end of each workday. Get a notebook and draw a line down the middle of a page. On one side, write "drained me." On the other, write "energized me." Be brutally honest and specific. Maybe "drained me" was the condescending tone of a specific coworker in the morning meeting. Maybe "energized me" was the 15 minutes you spent mentoring a new hire. It's not just about tasks. It's about interactions, environments, and expectations. After 2 weeks, you'll have a data set. You'll be able to see clear patterns. Is the problem the work itself or the toxic culture surrounding it? Is it your specific role or the entire industry? This data is power. It moves you from a vague feeling of "I hate my job" to a specific diagnosis of "my manager's communication style and the lack of autonomy in my role are the primary sources of my stress." Once you have that diagnosis, the second step is to reclaim your territory. Burnout thrives in a world without boundaries. You have to start building a firewall between your work life and your actual life. This can feel impossible in our hyper-connected world, but it starts with small, deliberate acts of defiance. If you don't have to, do not have your work email or Slack on your personal phone. Or if you must, turn off all notifications after a set time. Make a rule. The kitchen table is a work-free zone. Take a real lunch break and, if possible, leave the building. Go for a walk. Listen to music. Do anything but eat a sad sandwich at your desk while answering emails. These aren't just nice little self-care tips. They are strategic acts of disengagement. You are teaching your brain that it is safe to power down, that you are not on call 24/7. This creates the mental space you desperately need to think clearly about your next move. Finally, the third step is the most profound. You must redefine your relationship with work. For many of us, especially in America, our job becomes our identity. Our title, our company, our salary. These things become proxies for our self-worth. Burnout forces you to confront the bankruptcy of that idea. It forces you to ask a bigger question. What does a successful life look like, not just a successful career? Does it include time for relationships? For health? For curiosity? For joy? When you start to build a vision for your life that is richer and more expansive than your job title, the fear of making a career change begins to shrink. It's no longer a terrifying leap into the unknown. Instead, it becomes a logical, necessary step toward a life that doesn't require you to sacrifice your health and your soul for a paycheck. You realize that true wealth is having the energy to enjoy your life when you're not working. Recognizing that your body is paying the price for your job is a sobering realization. It's a sign that the fundamental contract between you and your employer is broken. You are giving more than you are getting back, and the deficit is being paid for with your well-being. But this realization is also a gift. It's the moment you stop sleepwalking toward a health crisis and start taking back control. But sometimes the stress isn't just from the crushing workload or the endless hours. It comes from a deeper place. It's a moral or ethical friction that grinds away at you, day after day. It's when the mission of the company, or the behavior of its leaders, is fundamentally at odds with who you are as a person. It's when the place you work doesn't just drain your energy, it compromises your very identity. And that brings us to our third, and perhaps most insidious sign that it's time for a change. Sign number 3. The learning curve has flatlined. This isn't about having a bad day or a boring week. This is when you realize the intellectual mountain you were hired to climb has been conquered, and all that's left is a plateau stretching endlessly toward the horizon. The thrill of the chase is gone. The challenge that once got your blood pumping and your mind racing now feels like a distant memory. You are, for all intents and purposes, an expert in a role that no longer requires your expertise to grow, only to maintain. Think about it. When you first started your job, everything was new. You were drinking from a fire hose of information, learning new systems, new processes, meeting new people. Your brain was firing on all cylinders, creating new neural pathways. It was exciting. It was difficult. And because it was difficult, it was rewarding. Every small victory, every problem solved, felt like a genuine accomplishment. You were evolving. But now you can do your job with your eyes closed. The tasks are muscle memory. The problems are predictable, and you have a flowchart in your head for solving every single one of them. Your workday has become a series of well-worn loops, a familiar script you recite day in and day out. You're no longer building, you're just running the program. This is a dangerous place to be in the 21st century American job market. Consider the story of a software engineer we'll call David. David was hired by a mid-sized tech company to help them modernize their aging infrastructure. For the first 2 years, he was a hero. He worked tirelessly, architecting new systems, squashing decade-old bugs, and migrating the entire company to the cloud. He was challenged, respected, and constantly learning. He loved his job, but then he succeeded. The project was done, and his role shifted from innovation to maintenance. His days, once filled with complex architectural puzzles, were now spent answering support tickets and making minor tweaks to a system he had built to perfection. His brain, a high-performance engine designed for racing, was being used to idle in traffic. He was getting paid well, his manager loved him because nothing ever broke, but inside, David felt a creeping sense of intellectual decay. He was no longer a creator. He was a custodian. This isn't just boredom. Boredom is temporary. This is professional atrophy. It's the feeling that your most valuable asset, your mind and your skill set, is not appreciating but depreciating. In today's economy, standing still is the same as moving backward. Technology, best practices, and entire industries are evolving at a breakneck pace. Historical trends suggest that the half-life of a technical skill can be as short as 2 to 5 years. The marketing strategies that were cutting-edge 3 years ago are now standard, or even obsolete. The financial models that were once the gold standard have been replaced by more sophisticated, AI-driven analytics. If you are not actively learning, growing, and adapting, you are not just stunting your personal development. You are becoming less valuable to the market. This is the insidious nature of the flatlined learning curve. It often comes disguised as comfort. The paycheck is reliable. The work is easy. The stress is low. It's a golden cage. The bars are padded, the food is good, but it's a cage nonetheless, and it's preventing you from flying. So how do you diagnose this condition in your own career? Ask yourself these brutally honest questions. And I mean really pause and think about them. 1. When was the last time you were genuinely nervous about a project at work? The kind of nervous that comes from being pushed outside your comfort zone, from tackling something you weren't 100% sure you could do? If you can't remember, that's a red flag. 2. What new marketable skill have you acquired in the last 6 months? I'm not talking about learning the new photocopier. I mean a tangible skill you could put on a resume, a new software, a data analysis technique, a certification, a new coding language. If the answer is nothing, that's a red flag. 3. Look at the people in your company who are 1 or 2 levels above you. Do you want their jobs? Are they doing work that excites you, that seems challenging and meaningful? Or does it just look like a more complicated, higher stress version of the same plateau you're on now? If you don't aspire to the next level, it might be because you're on the wrong ladder entirely. And here's the most potent question of all. If you were laid off today and had to reapply for your exact same job tomorrow, against a pool of hungry, up-to-date candidates, would you be the undeniable best choice? Or has your knowledge become so specific to your company's quirks and legacy systems that your skills are no longer transferable to the wider market? That is the ultimate test of career stagnation. This was the realization that hit a marketing director we'll call Maria. She had mastered the art of print and television advertising over a 15-year career. She was an award-winning star. But she noticed her company's budget, and the industry's attention, was shifting dramatically toward digital, social, and data analytics, areas where she was a novice. Her comfortable expertise was becoming a liability. Instead of waiting for her role to become obsolete, she took action. She used her company's tuition reimbursement program to take night classes in digital marketing analytics. She volunteered for cross-functional projects with the web team, even when it meant doing less glamorous work. She proactively reinvented her skill set. It was humbling. It was difficult. But it put her back on a steep learning curve, and within 2 years, she was leading the company's entire digital transformation, a role more challenging and rewarding than anything she had done before. The danger of the flatline curve is that it slowly erodes your confidence. When you're not being challenged, you stop seeing yourself as a capable, dynamic problem solver. You start to see yourself as a cog in a machine. This feeling doesn't stay at the office, follows you home. It seeps into your conversations, your ambitions, your very sense of self. You become less interesting because you are doing less interesting things. The slow drip of monotony can hollow out your passion and your ambition, leaving you with the quiet resignation that this is all there is. But it isn't. The American job market, for all its faults, is a vast ecosystem of opportunity for those who are willing to keep learning and growing. Recognizing that your growth has stalled is not a failure. It is an awakening. It is the first critical step toward finding a new mountain to climb. Stagnation is a silent career killer. It doesn't announce itself with a loud bang, but with a quiet, creeping whisper that tells you to play it safe, to not rock the boat, to be grateful for the comfort you have. But your career should be more than just comfortable. It should be compelling. It should be a source of growth and pride. If it's not, it's time for a change. However, sometimes the problem isn't a lack of challenge. Sometimes the raw materials for growth are there, but you can't access them. You can't learn, you can't focus, you can't even function at your best because the very air you breathe at work has become poisonous. This is when the workplace environment itself becomes the problem. A toxic force that drains your energy and sabotages your success. And that is the fourth and perhaps most draining sign of them all. It's a slow-acting poison, one you might not even notice at first. It starts with a passive-aggressive comment in a team meeting. Then it's the eye roll from a manager when you ask a question. Soon it's the constant low-level anxiety that settles in your stomach on Sunday night. A feeling of dread that has nothing to do with the work itself, but everything to do with the people and the place. A toxic work environment isn't about having a bad day or a difficult boss. It's a systemic cultural problem where the very foundation of the workplace is built on fear, disrespect, or dysfunction. And in the American job market, where hustle culture can sometimes be used as an excuse for poor management, it's a trap millions fall into. Toxicity wears many masks. One of the most common is the micromanager. This is the boss who needs to be copied on every email, who questions every decision you make, who watches your screen over your shoulder. It's not about ensuring quality, it's about control. It sends a clear message: I don't trust you. Over time, this erodes your confidence, stifles your creativity, and turns you from a proactive problem solver into a passive order taker, constantly looking over your shoulder, afraid to make a move without explicit permission. Your autonomy, the very thing that gives you a sense of ownership and pride, is stripped away, leaving you feeling like a cog in a machine, and a poorly maintained one at that. Then there's the high school cafeteria culture. This is the workplace run by gossip, cliques, and favoritism. Important information is shared in whispers among the in-crowd, while others are left in the dark. Promotions are based not on merit, but on who you have lunch with. It creates a deeply unsettling environment of paranoia and exclusion. You spend more energy navigating social minefields and decoding office politics than you do actually performing your job. This isn't just unpleasant, it's destructive. It breeds resentment, kills collaboration, and makes it impossible to build the genuine, trusting relationships that are essential for both professional success and personal well-being at work. Let's talk about a case study, a story we see play out all the time. Her name is Sarah. She landed what she thought was her dream job as a project manager at a fast-growing startup. The office had kombucha on tap, a ping-pong table, and a CEO who talked a big game about changing the world. For the first few months, she was ecstatic. But then the cracks began to show. Her director, Mark, was a classic ideas guy, who would publicly praise teamwork but privately pit his employees against each other. He'd assign the same project to two different people to see who would compete harder. In meetings, he would publicly shame anyone whose project numbers were even slightly down, calling it radical transparency. Sarah, a top performer, tried to adapt. She worked longer hours. She double-checked every single detail, terrified of being the one called out in the next meeting. She once stayed up until 3 a.m. to finish a presentation, only for Mark to present her slides as his own work to the executive team the next day, without giving her a shred of credit. That was the moment the kombucha started to taste sour. The ping-pong table gathered dust in her mind. The CEO's grand speeches about vision felt hollow. The unlimited vacation policy was a joke. Taking any time off was seen as a lack of commitment, and she'd return to an avalanche of passive-aggressive emails about how the team struggled without her. The stress began to manifest physically. Sarah developed chronic headaches. She couldn't sleep through the night, her mind racing with work anxieties. She became irritable and distant with her partner and friends, because all her emotional energy was being consumed just to survive the workday. She started to doubt herself, thinking, maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Maybe I'm not tough enough. This is the most insidious part of a toxic workplace. It gaslights you into believing you are the problem. But you are not the problem. A healthy plant cannot grow in poisoned soil. Research from institutions across the world has shown a direct link between toxic work environments and negative health outcomes. The constant state of high alert, the fight or flight response triggered by a hostile boss or a backstabbing colleague, floods your system with the stress hormone cortisol. Over time, chronically elevated cortisol can contribute to anxiety, depression, digestive issues, heart disease, and a weakened immune system. That knot in your stomach isn't just a feeling. It's a physiological response to a legitimate threat. Your body is telling you to get out. So how do you know if you're just in a demanding job, or if the environment is truly toxic? Here's a simple litmus test. First, the Sunday night dread test. We all get the Sunday blues sometimes, but this is different. This is a profound sense of anxiety, a visceral sickening feeling at the thought of walking into that building on Monday. It's not about the work. It's about the emotional armor you have to put on to face the people. Second, the parking lot test. In the morning, do you find yourself sitting in your car, scrolling on your phone, doing anything to delay walking through those doors for another 5 minutes? And at the end of the day, are you the first one out, practically sprinting to your car, not with a sense of accomplishment but with a sense of escape, like you've just survived another day? Your car has become a decompression chamber, a buffer zone between your real life and the toxic one you're paid to endure. And third, the venting test. When you talk to your spouse, your parents, or your best friends, what do you talk about? If the vast majority of your conversations are just you venting, complaining, and rehashing the injustices and frustrations of your job, then your work is no longer just a part of your life. It has become the central antagonist in your life story. It's colonizing your personal relationships and your mental peace. Sarah eventually reached her breaking point. After that stolen presentation, she quietly updated her resume. The simple act of looking at job postings on LinkedIn felt like opening a window in a stuffy, smoke-filled room. She took a few dentist appointments to go on interviews. At one, the hiring manager asked her what she was looking for in a team culture. She described the opposite of her current job: collaboration, trust, recognition, and psychological safety. The manager nodded and said, "That's exactly what we pride ourselves on here." Sarah almost cried in the interview. She got the job. Her last day at the startup was the lightest she had felt in 2 years. She didn't make a scene. She just packed her box, walked out the door, and took a deep, clean breath. Leaving a toxic job isn't failure. It's not quitting. It's an act of profound self-preservation. It's a declaration that your health, your sanity, and your self-worth are not for sale. It's choosing to find soil where you can actually grow. But what if the opposite is true? What if your boss is supportive, your colleagues are great, the pay is fair, and the environment is perfectly healthy, yet you still feel a deep, nagging sense of emptiness? What if you look at your daily tasks and feel a soul-crushing lack of connection? This is when the problem isn't the environment around you, but the alignment within you. And that brings us to the fifth and final sign, the one that points not to a bad job, but to the wrong path entirely. Sign number 5. You're succeeding at a job you don't want. This isn't about burnout from overwork or frustration with a bad boss. This is the chilling realization that you've become incredibly good at being someone you were never meant to be. It's the feeling of climbing a ladder for years, only to reach the top and discover it was leaning against the wrong wall the entire time. This is the most profound and often the most terrifying sign of them all, because it suggests the problem isn't your company, your role, or your industry. It's the entire direction of your professional life. Let's talk about a real-life case study. We'll call him David. David was the quintessential American success story. He was a senior financial analyst at a prestigious firm in Chicago. By 35, he had a corner office with a view, a six-figure salary that climbed every year, and the respect of his peers. He managed multi-million-dollar portfolios. He could dissect a balance sheet in his sleep. On paper, he had one. But David was living a lie. Every morning, the reflection in the mirror felt like a stranger wearing a well-tailored suit. His work, which was objectively important and complex, felt like moving numbers from one box to another. It was a high-stakes game that he was brilliant at playing, but he had forgotten why he was even on the field. His aha moment didn't come in a flash of lightning. It was a slow burn. It was in the small moments. It was the envy he felt seeing a friend who was a high school history teacher, exhausted and underpaid, but who spoke about his students with a fire in his eyes that David hadn't felt for anything in a decade. It was the weekend he spent building a bookshelf from scratch in his garage, feeling more satisfaction from a perfectly joined corner than he did from closing a major deal the week before. He realized he was professionally numb. The highs weren't high and the lows were just a dull, persistent ache of meaninglessness. This is the classic golden handcuffs scenario. The salary, the benefits, the prestige, they become a cage. A comfortable, well-appointed cage, but a cage nonetheless. The thought of leaving feels like an act of insanity. How do you explain to your family that you want to walk away from a salary that provides a great life for them? How do you justify starting over at the bottom of a new field when you're at the top of your current one? The fear of the unknown is dwarfed by the fear of losing what you already have. This fear keeps millions of talented, capable people in careers that are slowly draining the life out of them. They aren't failing. They are succeeding their way into misery. So, how do you know if you're in David's shoes? The key indicator is a persistent daydreaming about a completely alternate life. Not just a better version of your current life, but a total rewrite. The financial analyst who secretly scours woodworking forums. The lawyer who binges documentaries about national park rangers. The marketing executive who has a detailed business plan for a small-town coffee shop saved on her laptop. If your fantasy escape isn't a vacation but a different vocation, you are staring sign number 5 right in the face. It's the gap between the life you're living and the life you're imagining. And when that gap becomes a canyon, it's time to build a bridge. Building that bridge doesn't mean recklessly quitting your job tomorrow. It begins with a quiet, honest, and systematic process of self-excavation. The first step is what I call a values audit. Forget about job titles and salaries for a moment. Take out a piece of paper and write down what truly matters to you as a human being. Is it autonomy, the freedom to control your own time and decisions? Is it service, the desire to directly help others and see the impact? Is it creativity, the need to build, design, or innovate? Is it stability, intellectual challenge, or community? Be brutally honest. If you're in a high-paying job but financial wealth doesn't even make your top 10 list of values, while community connection is number 1, you have a fundamental misalignment. Your career is satisfying a need you don't deeply have, while starving a need you do. The second step is the curiosity inventory. What do you naturally gravitate towards in your free time? What sections of the bookstore do you wander into? What kinds of podcasts do you download? What topics make you lose track of time when you're reading about them online? Your genuine curiosities are breadcrumbs leading you toward your purpose. For years, you may have dismissed them as hobbies or distractions. But they are not. They are data. They are signals from the real you about what kind of work would actually engage your mind and spirit. The analyst who loves woodworking isn't just curious about wood. He's curious about tangible creation. The lawyer who dreams of being a park ranger isn't just curious about trees. She's curious about conservation, education, and solitude. The third and most critical step is creating a skill bridge. This is where you combat the "I'd have to start all over" fear. You have spent years, maybe decades, acquiring valuable skills. They are not tied to your job title. They are transferable assets. David, the financial analyst, didn't just know numbers. He was an expert in risk assessment, long-term strategic planning, and communicating complex information in a simple way. Those skills are gold not just on Wall Street, but for a nonprofit director planning a budget, an entrepreneur seeking venture capital for a sustainable energy company, or even a city planner trying to forecast economic development. You have to deconstruct your current role into a list of pure skills. Do you manage teams? That's leadership. Do you handle difficult clients? That's negotiation and conflict resolution. Do you write reports? That's communication. Do you organize projects? That's project management. Once you have this list, you can start looking at your fields of curiosity not from the perspective of a novice, but as a skilled professional looking for a new application. You're not starting from scratch. You're executing a strategic pivot. You're taking your toolkit to a new construction site, one where you actually want to build. This process transforms the terrifying leap into a series of manageable steps. It reframes the narrative from giving it all up to redeploying your assets. It's the difference between jumping out of a plane without a parachute and carefully planning a journey to a new destination. Recognizing this fifth sign is not a crisis. It's an invitation. It's your subconscious telling you that you've outgrown the path you're on, that the success you've achieved is real, but it's no longer sufficient. It's an invitation to align your daily work with your deepest values, to build a career that doesn't just fund your life, but fulfills it. So we've now covered all 5 signs: the Sunday night dread, the stagnation sensation, the toxic environment takeover, the disconnected culture, and finally, the success on the wrong ladder. Each one is a critical warning light on your personal dashboard. But identifying the problem is only half the battle. Knowing you need a change and knowing how to make that change are 2 very different things. The fear, the uncertainty, the practical questions of money and family, they all come rushing in the moment you admit one of these signs is true for you. So where do you even begin? What is the very first, concrete, non-terrifying action you can take to move from recognition to resolution? That's what we're going to break down next. The first step is not to frantically update your resume. It's not to start rage applying to 100 jobs on LinkedIn at 2 in the morning. And it is absolutely not to hand in your notice with no plan. The most powerful, most effective first step is something much quieter. It's an audit. A personal career audit. Now, I know the word audit sounds about as fun as a trip to the DMV, but stick with me. Think of it like this. You wouldn't go to the grocery store without first looking in your own pantry, right? You check what you have, what you're out of, and what's gone bad. You don't just run in and start grabbing things off the shelf hoping you can make a meal out of it. Your career is the same way. Before you go out into the job market, you have to take inventory of what you already have inside you. This isn't about what your job title says you are. It's about who you actually are. This audit has 3 core components: the what, the why, and the where. Get a piece of paper, open a new document, and make 3 columns. This simple act is your first step out of the fog. Let's start with the first column. The what. This is your inventory of skills and strengths. And I want you to be brutally honest and incredibly generous with yourself here. This isn't just about the hard skills listed on your job description, like proficient in Salesforce or knows Python. Yes, list those. But dig deeper. What are the things you do almost without thinking that create value? Are you the person everyone comes to when a client is upset? That's not just customer service. That's high-level de-escalation, empathetic communication, and problem-solving under pressure. Are you the one who can take a messy, chaotic spreadsheet and make it make sense? That's not just good with Excel. That's data organization, systems thinking, and creating clarity from chaos. Think about a project manager I once knew, let's call her Sarah. For years, her what was Gantt charts, budgets, and timelines. She was good at it, but she felt like a cog in a machine. When she did her audit, she was forced to think about what she actually did all day. She realized that 90% of her job wasn't moving boxes around on a chart. It was persuading a skeptical engineering team to buy into a new feature. It was crafting the perfect email to get a busy executive to approve a budget. It was telling the story of the project to stakeholders to keep them excited. Her real skills weren't project management. They were persuasion, storytelling, and influence. That single realization changed everything. She started looking at roles in corporate communications and change management, fields she'd never even considered. She eventually landed a role helping a major company roll out new internal software, a job that used her what to its fullest and paid her significantly more. So ask yourself, what do people thank you for? What part of your job feels effortless even when others struggle with it? What problems do you naturally solve? Don't judge the answers. Just write them down. Now for the second column, the why. This is arguably the most important one. These are your core values and non-negotiables. This is the reason so many high achievers are miserable. They have a fantastic what, but it's in service of a why that's completely misaligned with their own. Your why is your internal compass. It's the set of principles that, when honored, make you feel fulfilled and energized. And when they're violated, they make you feel drained, resentful, and burned out. What goes in this column? Things like autonomy, the freedom to make your own decisions. Impact, the need to see your work make a tangible difference in the world. Stability, the comfort of a predictable schedule and a steady paycheck. Creativity, the desire to build something new from scratch. Collaboration, the energy you get from working in a tight-knit team. Or maybe it's financial security, intellectual challenge, or work-life balance that allows you to coach your kids' soccer team every Tuesday. There's no right or wrong answer, but you have to know what yours are. I worked with a lawyer, David, who was the classic American success story. Top law school, partner track at a prestigious firm, corner office, the whole 9 yards. And he was profoundly unhappy. The Sunday scaries were more like the Friday afternoon scaries for him. When he did his audit, his why column was a revelation. He wrote down intellectual challenge, which his job had, but he also wrote down direct human connection and helping the underdog. He realized he was spending his days helping massive corporations find tax loopholes. His work was intellectually stimulating, but it was actively violating his core values. He felt like a hypocrite every single day. He didn't quit law. Instead, he used this new clarity to pivot. He took a significant pay cut, initially, to join a legal aid society, representing tenants who were facing eviction. He told me a year later that he'd never felt richer in his life. He was working just as hard, but his why was finally aligned. So look at your list. Think about a time you felt truly proud of your work. What value were you honoring? Now think of a time you felt angry or resentful at work. What value was being ignored or trampled on? That's your why. Finally, the third column, the where. This is the fun part. This is your list of interests, passions, and curiosities. For this column, I want you to completely ignore the question of, how could I make money from this? That's not the point. The point is to map out the territories that genuinely excite your brain. What topics do you fall down a rabbit hole reading about online? What podcasts are you subscribed to? If you had a whole weekend to yourself, what problem would you love to spend your time trying to solve? Maybe it's sustainable agriculture, the history of video games, mental health advocacy, minimalist architecture, fantasy football analytics, or how to make the perfect sourdough bread. Write it all down. The connection to a career may not be obvious, and that's okay. The goal here is to identify industries, subject areas, and missions that naturally energize you. A friend of mine was an auditor at a big accounting firm. He was great at his job, but bored to tears. His where column was just one thing: craft beer. He spent his weekends visiting breweries, studying brewing techniques, and even had a sophisticated homebrewing setup in his garage. He thought it was just a hobby. But when he looked at his three columns together, his what? Financial analysis, process optimization. His why? Supporting small businesses, creating a quality product. And his where? Craft beer. A light bulb went on. He started looking for finance roles inside the craft beverage industry. Today, he's the CFO for a rapidly growing regional brewery. He uses the exact same skills he had as an auditor, but now he's applying them to a field he genuinely loves. He's not just crunching numbers. He's helping a business he believes in to grow. So there it is. Your first non-terrifying step. 3 columns: the what, the why, and the where. Your skills, your values, and your interests. Don't try to make it perfect. Just get it down on paper. This document is your personal Rosetta Stone. It will help you decipher the confusing language of career dissatisfaction. It transforms that vague, heavy feeling of "I need a change" into a concrete, data-driven starting point. I am looking for a role that uses my skills in storytelling and data analysis, honors my values of autonomy and impact, and operates in the world of education technology. See how much more powerful that is? You're no longer a victim of your circumstances. You're an analyst with a clear problem statement. This audit is your foundation. It's the map of your internal world. But a map is useless if you don't know how to read it or where it connects to the real world. You've done the internal work. You have this new, powerful understanding of who you are and what you need. So what do you do with it? How do you take this personal inventory and translate it into actual job titles, companies, and career paths that exist in the real American job market? How do you explore these new territories without quitting your job and taking a massive, terrifying leap of faith? That's the bridge we need to build. And the method for building that bridge is what we're going to cover in the very next part. The first plank in that bridge isn't made of wood or steel. It's made of information. High-quality, real-world information that goes far beyond a simple Google search for best-paying jobs. This is about moving from a vague daydream to a data-driven hypothesis. We call this the reconnaissance phase, and it's your first and most critical mission in de-risking a career change. Your goal here is to become a detective, and the mystery you're solving is, what is this job really like day to day? The single most powerful tool in this phase is the informational interview. Now, I know that sounds like corporate jargon, but it's just a fancy term for having a conversation. You are going to talk to people who are already living the life you think you want. Not to ask for a job, that's critical. You are asking for their story. People love to talk about their work and their journey. Your mission is to find 3 to 5 people in your target role or industry and ask for 15 minutes of their time. How do you find them? LinkedIn is your best friend here. Search for the job title like UX designer or financial analyst, and filter by your city, your college alumni, or even people who used to work at your current company. When you send a connection request, make it personal. Don't use the generic template. Say something like, "Hi Sarah. I see you're a senior product manager at XYZ company. I'm currently in marketing but am deeply exploring a transition into product, and your career path is incredibly inspiring. Would you be open to a brief 15-minute virtual coffee so I could hear a bit about your experience?" It's respectful, it's specific, and it makes it clear you're not a salesperson. Once you're on the call, your questions are everything. Don't ask, "Do you like your job?" That's a yes or no question. Ask open-ended questions that reveal the texture of the work. Questions like, "What does a typical Tuesday look like for you? From the moment you log on to the moment you log off?" Or, "What's a problem you solved recently that you were really proud of?" And my personal favorite, "What's the one thing people who don't work in this role misunderstand about it?" The answer to that last question is pure gold. It cuts through the public perception and gives you the unvarnished reality. After 3 of these conversations, you'll have a picture of the job that is 1,000 times more accurate than any article you could read online. The second part of your reconnaissance is to become an obsessive student of job descriptions. Don't just skim them. Go to Indeed or LinkedIn and find 20 job postings for the role you're interested in. Copy and paste them into a single document. Now take out a highlighter. Start highlighting the skills that appear over and over and over again. Is every single posting asking for proficiency in Salesforce or Python or Google Analytics? That's not a coincidence. That's a barrier to entry. What about the soft skills? Do they all mention cross-functional collaboration or stakeholder management? You're not just looking for a job. You're building a blueprint of the ideal candidate. This document becomes your personal curriculum. It tells you exactly what the market is demanding right now in plain English. Now that you have the raw intelligence from people and from the market, it's time to build the second part of the bridge, the skill gap analysis. This sounds complex, but it's incredibly simple and you can do it on a sheet of paper. Draw a line down the middle. On the left side, write skills required, and list those key skills you just highlighted from the job descriptions. On the right side, write skills I have, and be ruthlessly honest with yourself. Let's say you want to move from customer service into data analytics. On the left, you might have SQL, Tableau, Python, and statistical analysis. On the right, you might have excellent communication, problem solving, and empathy. Looking at this, it's easy to feel discouraged. You see the gap, but you're missing the point. This isn't a judgment. It's a map. The gap isn't a chasm. It's a to-do list. You now know exactly what you need to learn. The vague, terrifying monster of "I'm not qualified" has been replaced by a clear, manageable set of targets. You don't need to learn coding. You need to learn the basics of SQL and how to create a dashboard in Tableau. See the difference? One is overwhelming, the other is an action plan. This leads us to the most powerful and, frankly, the most exciting part of this entire process. This is where you test your hypothesis in the real world without risking a single paycheck. We call this the micro-project phase. A microproject is a small, self-contained piece of work that simulates the actual job you want. It's your career test drive. Instead of just reading about being a graphic designer, you design a logo for a fictional coffee shop. Instead of just wondering if you'd like marketing, you create a 3-month social media content calendar for a local nonprofit you admire. The key here is that it has to be a real project with a real output. Why? 2 reasons. First, it tells you if you actually enjoy the work. It's one thing to be fascinated by the idea of analyzing data. It's another thing entirely to spend a Saturday afternoon cleaning a messy dataset, finding the right visualization, and writing up your findings. You might discover you absolutely love it, that you lose track of time. Or you might find it mind-numbingly tedious. Either discovery is a massive win. Finding out you hate the work before you quit your job is a victory of epic proportions. Second, the microproject becomes your first piece of evidence. It's your proof of interest and your proof of fledgling skill. When you eventually do start applying for jobs, you're no longer just the person from customer service. You're the person from customer service who, in their own time, took a public dataset from the city of Austin, analyzed public transportation trends, and built a compelling Tableau dashboard to visualize on-time performance. Who do you think is a more compelling candidate? The one who says, "I'm a fast learner," or the one who says, "Let me show you what I learned and built on my own"? Let's make this concrete. If you want to get into UX/UI design, your microproject could be to identify a frustrating user experience in an app you use every day. maybe your banking app or a food delivery service, and redesign a 3-screen flow to make it better. You can use free tools like Figma to do this. If you're exploring project management, you can plan a significant personal project like a family reunion or a home renovation, using professional tools like Trello or Asana, creating a project charter, a timeline with dependencies, and a risk assessment. You're applying the professional framework to a personal context. This entire process, reconnaissance, skill gap analysis, and the micro-project is your bridge. It's built on curiosity, not blind faith. It's a systematic way to turn a feeling of dissatisfaction into a concrete plan of action. You're gathering data, you're identifying the path, and you're taking it for a spin, all from the safety of your current position. This isn't about daydreaming. It's about doing. It's about building your future one small, deliberate step at a time. But what happens when you complete that micro-project? What happens when you test drive that new career and discover that you love it? You feel that spark, that engagement you've been missing for years. You've proven to yourself that this isn't just a fantasy. It's a real viable path. That feeling is incredible, but it's immediately followed by a new daunting question. Now what? How do you take this small project, this newfound passion, and translate it into a resume, an interview, and a job offer? How do you package this side quest so that a hiring manager sees you not as a risk, but as an incredible opportunity? That's the conversion process, and it requires a strategy all its own. The first step in that strategy is a radical mental shift. You have to stop thinking of yourself as unqualified. That word is a trap. It assumes your past experience is a liability. It's not. It's an asset, but it's an asset currently priced in a foreign currency. The hiring manager in your target industry doesn't know the exchange rate. Your job isn't to apologize for your background. Your job is to be the currency converter. You are the translator who makes the value of your experience undeniable. Think about it. A hiring manager's biggest fear is making a bad hire. It's costly, it's time-consuming, and it reflects poorly on them. When they see a resume from a different industry, their brain flags it as a risk. Will they understand our culture? Do they have the core skills? Will they get bored and leave? Your entire mission during this conversion process is to systematically dismantle every single one of those fears and replace them with a sense of opportunity. You need to make them feel that hiring you isn't a risk, it's a brilliant strategic move, a competitive advantage they'd be foolish to pass up. So how do we do that? We begin by treating the job description not as a wall you have to climb, but as a blueprint. It's the company literally telling you what their pain points are and what kind of hero they're looking for. Most people scan a job description and play a game of spot the difference with their resume, getting discouraged by every line that doesn't match perfectly. The strategist does the opposite. You dissect it, print it out, get a highlighter. First, highlight every action verb they use: analyze, develop, manage, optimize, implement. This is the language of their world. Next, circle the key nouns and technologies: SaaS platforms, stakeholder communication, agile methodology, market research, SQL. Finally, read between the lines. What is the story this job description is telling? Are they trying to grow a new market? Fix a broken process? Build something from scratch? The job title might be project manager, but the real job might be chaos tamer or bridge builder. Once you understand the problem they're trying to solve, you can position yourself as the solution. Now comes the most powerful tool in your conversion arsenal: the Skills Translation Matrix. This is your personal Rosetta Stone. It's a simple document you'll create for every single job you apply for. Open a spreadsheet or a Word doc. Make 2 columns. In the left column, you're going to copy and paste the top 5 to 7 key requirements from the job description you just dissected, word for word. For example, a requirement might be experience managing cross-functional projects and communicating with senior leadership. Now, in the right column next to that requirement, you're going to write down a specific experience from your current or past job that proves you can do that, and this is the critical part, you're going to write it in their language. You're going to use the verbs and nouns you highlighted. Let's say you're a restaurant manager trying to pivot into a corporate operations role. The requirement is managing cross-functional projects. You don't write, I managed waiters and cooks. No, you translate. You write, spearheaded the complete overhaul of our inventory management system, coordinating between the front of house, sales, back of house, production, and external vendors' supply chain, to reduce food waste by 18% in 6 months. See the difference? You just turned running a kitchen into a quantifiable, cross-functional project management success story. Let's do another one. The job description asks for communicating with senior leadership. You don't write, "I talked to the restaurant owner." You write, "Prepared and delivered weekly performance reports to the executive owner, presenting data on revenue, labor costs, and customer satisfaction metrics to inform strategic business decisions." Suddenly, you're not a restaurant manager anymore. You're a business operator who has experience with data analysis, reporting, and executive communication. You do this for every key requirement. You go line by line, translating your history into their future. This matrix does two things. First, it proves to you that you are not unqualified. You're just speaking a different dialect. Second, it becomes the raw material for rebuilding your entire application, your resume and your cover letter. Your new resume is not a chronological list of duties. That's for people staying in the same lane. A career change resume is a marketing document. It's a bridge. It has one purpose: to connect the dots for the reader so they don't have to. You start with a professional summary at the top, not an objective. An objective is about what you want. A summary is about the value you offer. It should be a 3-sentence pitch that immediately addresses the career change. Something like, former healthcare professional with 8 years of experience in high-stakes patient data management and process optimization, now leveraging a proven track record of analytical problem-solving, and a recent certification in data science to transition into a health tech analyst role, seeking to apply expertise in patient outcomes to improve healthcare software solutions. Boom! In 3 sentences, you've told them who you are, what you've done, why you're changing, and what you want to do for them. You've controlled the narrative. Then, for your work experience, you don't just list your old job duties. You pull the translated, quantified bullet points directly from your skills translation matrix. Every bullet point on your resume should be a direct answer to a requirement in the job description. If you were a high school teacher trying to get into corporate training, you don't say taught English to 11th graders. You say, designed and executed a year-long curriculum for over 150 students, adapting instructional strategies to accommodate diverse learning styles and improving standardized test scores by an average of 12%. It's the same job but a completely different language. One is about teaching. The other is about curriculum design, strategic adaptation, and measurable results. That's the language of corporate learning and development. If the resume is the evidence, the cover letter is the closing argument. This is where you bring the story to life. A generic cover letter is a death sentence for a career changer. Yours has to be a masterpiece of persuasion. You lead by acknowledging the elephant in the room. You don't hide your pivot. You feature it. Your opening paragraph should be confident. While my professional background has been in the nonprofit sector, it was my experience leading a multi-million-dollar fundraising campaign that ignited my passion for data-driven marketing and led me to pursue a career in this field. You're showing it was a deliberate evolution, not a desperate escape. Then, the body of your cover letter becomes a mini-narrative. Pick 2 or 3 of the most important requirements from the job description. For each one, tell a concise story using the STAR method: situation, task, action, result. In my previous role, we were facing a decline in donor engagement. Situation. I was tasked with reversing this trend with a limited budget. Task. I took the initiative to dive into our historical donor data, segmenting our audience and creating personalized outreach campaigns based on past giving behavior. I implemented a small-scale A/B test on our email subject lines, which led to a new strategy: action. As a result, we saw a 30% increase in our open rates and a 15% lift in donations from that segment within 1 quarter. Result. This experience in leveraging data to understand and motivate an audience is precisely what I'm excited to bring to your team. You are literally making it impossible for them to say you don't have the experience. You're showing them with a story and with numbers that you've already solved a similar problem to the one they're facing. You're de-risking your own candidacy right there on the page. This entire process, the dissection, the translation matrix, the bridge resume, the storytelling cover letter, is about shifting the burden of proof. You're no longer asking them to take a chance on you. You are demonstrating with overwhelming evidence that your unique background is not just relevant, but is actually a unique and powerful advantage. You bring a perspective that no one else who has been in this industry for 10 years will have. And that is a proposition that an intelligent company finds very, very hard to resist. But how do you communicate that value when you feel like a total outsider? How do you walk into an interview for a role in, say, the renewable energy sector when your last 10 years were spent in retail management? The immediate, gut punch feeling is imposter syndrome. It's that voice in your head screaming, "You don't belong here. They're going to find out you're a fraud." This feeling is the single greatest dream killer for career changers in America today. It's what keeps people chained to desks and jobs they despise, because the fear of being exposed as an amateur is more powerful than the misery of staying put. And this fear is built on a single fundamentally flawed premise, the myth of starting over. We've been conditioned to think of a career path as a ladder. You climb one ladder, and if you want to change, you have to go all the way down to the bottom and start climbing a completely different one, rung by painful rung. You're throwing away a decade of your life, a decade of expertise, a decade of climbing. But this is a lie. A successful career change isn't about starting over. It's about a strategic pivot. It's about understanding that you're not throwing away your ladder. You're simply taking all the skills, all the resilience, all the wisdom you gained climbing it, and using that to build a bridge to a new place. Your past experience isn't baggage. It's your toolkit. We need to stop thinking in terms of job titles and start thinking in terms of a core skills stack. Let's take that retail manager who wants to move into renewable energy. On the surface, it seems like a ridiculous leap. But let's look at their core skills stack. For 10 years, they've managed complex logistics and supply chains. They've handled multi-million-dollar budgets in P&LS. They've hired, trained, and led teams of dozens of people. They've dealt with difficult customers, negotiated with vendors, and solved unexpected crises on a daily basis. Now, look at a project manager role at a solar energy company. What do they need? Someone who understands logistics to get panels to an installation site. Someone who can manage a budget to keep the project profitable. Someone who can lead a team of installers and engineers. Someone who can communicate with demanding clients. Suddenly, that retail manager's core skill stack doesn't just look relevant. It looks custom-made for the role. The only thing missing is the industry-specific knowledge, and that is the easiest part to learn. The hard part, the decade of leadership, financial acumen, and crisis management, is already there. You are not starting from zero. You are starting from a position of immense, battle-tested experience. So the question isn't, how do I start over? The real question is, how do I build the bridge from where I am to where I want to be? You don't do it by taking a reckless leap of faith, quitting your job on a Monday with no plan. That's a recipe for panic and financial disaster. Instead, you build your bridge methodically, plank by plank, while you still have the security of your current job. The first plank of this bridge is a targeted information diet. You need to become fluent in the language of your new industry. If you want to move into tech, you should be listening to tech podcasts on your commute. You should be subscribed to the top newsletters in that space, reading the articles, and learning the names of the key players and companies. You need to immerse yourself. The goal here is to transform the scary unknown into the familiar territory. When you can understand the conversations, the acronyms, and the current trends, your imposter syndrome starts to lose its power. You begin to see where your own skills fit into this new world. The second plank is the Skill Up project. Notice I didn't say, go get another 4-year degree. For most career changes, that is a massively expensive and time-consuming mistake. Instead, identify the 1 or 2 most critical, tangible skills you're missing and find the most direct way to acquire them. If you're an editor who wants to move into marketing, maybe you don't need an MBA. Maybe what you really need is to become certified in Google Analytics and Facebook ads. Take an online course, get the certification, and then, and this is the crucial part, find a way to use it. Offer to run a small ad campaign for a local business or a friend's startup for free. This does 2 things. It solidifies your learning into real-world experience, and it gives you a tangible result, a case study, that you can put on your resume and talk about in an interview. You're no longer saying, I took a course. You're saying, I ran a campaign that resulted in a 15% increase in leads for this business. That is a world of difference. The third, and perhaps most important, plank is seeding your network. This is where most people get it wrong. They think networking is about awkwardly asking strangers for a job. It's not. It's about collecting information and building genuine relationships. Use a platform like LinkedIn to find people who have the job you want. Send them a polite, concise message. Don't say, can you help me get a job? Say something like, hi name, I'm currently at your job title, and I'm deeply inspired by the work your company is doing in their industry. I'm exploring a potential career transition, and your journey is particularly interesting. Would you be open to a brief 15-minute virtual coffee? so I could ask a couple of questions about your experience. Most people are happy to talk about their own success for 15 minutes. In these conversations, you're not a job seeker, you're a student. You're asking questions. What skills are most important in your role? What's the biggest challenge your industry is facing? What do you wish you had known when you started? You are gathering priceless, real-world intelligence that you can't find in any job description. And in the process, you are building a network of allies. When a position does open up, you're no longer a random resume in a pile. You're a familiar name, someone who showed genuine curiosity and initiative. Underpinning all of this is the financial runway. This is the foundation upon which your bridge is built. Making a change from a place of financial desperation forces you to take the first offer that comes along, not the right one. Before you even begin building your bridge, you need to be systematically saving. Calculate your essential monthly expenses and aim to have 6 to 12 months of that amount saved in an accessible account. This isn't just a safety net, it's a power source. It gives you the confidence to say no to a bad fit. It gives you the breathing room to negotiate for the salary you deserve. It removes the timeline of panic and replaces it with the timeline of strategy. Think of Sarah, a forensic accountant who spent 12 years staring at spreadsheets, feeling completely drained. She was passionate about environmental causes but felt her skills were useless there. She thought, what does a sustainability nonprofit need with an accountant who specializes in fraud? That was her starting over myth. But then she started building her bridge. She immersed herself in podcasts about corporate sustainability and ESG, environmental, social, and governance investing. That was her information diet. She realized companies were struggling to quantify the financial impact of their green initiatives. So she took an online certification course in ESG reporting, her skill-up project. Then, she started reaching out to sustainability managers at Fortune 500 companies, not for a job, but to understand their challenges, seeding her network. In one of those conversations, a manager said, "Our biggest problem is making the business case for these projects to our CFO. We know it's the right thing to do, but we can't speak his language." A light bulb went off for Sarah. She didn't need to abandon her financial background. She needed to lean into it. Her unique advantage wasn't just her newfound passion for sustainability. It was her ability to translate that passion into the language of profit and loss, risk analysis, and return on investment. She was the perfect translator between the sustainability department and the C-suite. She built her bridge, and when the right role came up, a director of ESG finance, she didn't just walk across it. She sprinted. She wasn't starting over. She was converging. She was bringing her entire history to bear on a new and exciting problem. That is the modern American career change. It is not an act of erasure. It is an act of integration. And this act of integration is where the real power lies. Think about it. The old model of a career change was built on a foundation of shame. It implied you made a mistake, that you chose the wrong path, and now you have to pay the price by starting over at square one, erasing a decade of your life. But the modern American career, the asynchronous, portfolio-driven career, understands a fundamental truth. No experience is ever wasted. The skills you learned as a project manager don't vanish when you become a user experience designer. They make you a better designer because you understand timelines, stakeholders, and execution. The empathy you developed as a nurse doesn't evaporate when you move into human resources. It becomes your superpower in conflict resolution and employee wellness. You are not shedding your old skin. You are simply growing into a larger one that can hold all of your accumulated wisdom. This is the lens through which we must view the 5 signs we've discussed. They are not individual alarms going off in isolated rooms. They are a symphony of signals, playing a song that tells you the current architecture of your life can no longer contain your growth. When you feel that constant Sunday night dread, that pit in your stomach, that's not just a sign of burnout. It's a sign of a deep, intuitive misalignment. It's your body's wisdom telling you that the energy you're expending isn't being replenished by a sense of purpose. When you hit that ceiling, that feeling of stagnation where your learning curve has flatlined and you're just repeating the same year over and over again, that's not just boredom. It's your mind's hunger for challenge and mastery being starved. The human brain is a growth engine. When you stop feeding it new problems, it begins to rust. When the values of your company or your industry start to feel like a poorly fitting suit scratching at your conscience, that's not you being difficult. That's your integrity sending a flare into the sky. It's the realization that what you do every day is actively shaping who you become, and you're starting to dislike the person you see in the mirror. when your physical and mental health begin to fray. When the stress manifests as sleepless nights or a perpetually short fuse, that's not a sign of weakness. It's a biological feedback loop. It's your system telling you, in the only language it knows, that the environment is toxic and the cost of admission is simply too high. And finally, when you see the writing on the wall, when your industry is being disrupted by automation or your core skills are becoming a commodity, that's not a death sentence for your career. It's an invitation from the future. It's a signal to step off the sinking ship, not as a refugee, but as a seasoned sailor looking for a more seaworthy vessel. When these 5 signs begin to converge, they create a powerful gravitational pull towards change. But standing between you and that change is a gatekeeper. A formidable, ancient, and deeply personal gatekeeper, fear. Fear tells you a story. It's a very compelling story, one that's been refined over millennia of human evolution. It's a story of scarcity, of risk, of loss. It whispers that you'll lose your financial security, that you'll have to start from the bottom, that you'll be an imposter in a new field. It screams that people will judge you, that your family will think you're irresponsible, that you're throwing away years of hard work for a fantasy. Fear is a brilliant storyteller, and its favorite genre is horror. And the climax of its story is always the same. You alone having failed, regretting the one moment of courage that led to your downfall. But here's the secret about that gatekeeper. It's not actually protecting you from the future. It's protecting your past. It's protecting the identity you've built. I am an accountant. I am a lawyer. I am a marketing director. These labels are comfortable. They are known quantities. They provide a simple answer to the question, what do you do? Fear's job is to preserve that simple answer, because the alternative, the unknown, is terrifyingly complex. So how do you get past the gatekeeper? You don't fight it. You don't try to punch fear in the face. You do what any good strategist does, you change the nature of the game. You stop seeing a career change as one single terrifying leap across a chasm. Instead, you see it as a series of small, calculated, and data-driven experiments. You don't quit your job tomorrow to become a chef. You start a food blog. You take a weekend course on knife skills. You cater a small party for a friend. These are what we call small bets. Each one is a low-risk, low-cost way to gather information. Did you enjoy the pressure? Did you love the creativity? Did you hate the cleanup? You're not trying to succeed or fail. You're trying to learn. You're replacing the terrifying question of what if I fail with the infinitely more powerful question of what can I learn? While you're placing these small bets, you conduct a skill audit. This is a critical step. Take out a piece of paper and list every single skill you have, but strip away the job title. Don't write, manage the Q3 marketing campaign. Write, coordinated a cross-functional team of 5 people to deliver a complex project under a tight deadline and a $50,000 budget. See the difference? The first is a task. The second is a collection of high-value, transferable skills: project management, team leadership, budget oversight, and execution under pressure. You have to learn to speak the language of your skills, not the language of your job titles. Your resume is a record of your past, but your skills are a passport to your future. And that passport has visas to more countries than you can possibly imagine. Once you have this inventory, you start having conversations, not job interviews. We call them informational interviews, but a better term is reality-checking conversations. You reach out to people on LinkedIn who are doing the jobs you find interesting. You don't ask for a job. You ask for their story. I see you made a transition from finance to tech. That's something I'm exploring, and I'm so impressed by your journey. Would you be open to a 15-minute chat to share what that experience was like for you? You're not a job seeker. You're a student. You're a journalist researching a story. And this approach does something magical. It lowers the defenses of the other person, and it transforms your fear of networking into a genuine curiosity about other people. You'll be shocked by how many people are willing to help someone who approaches them with humility and curiosity. Each conversation is a data point, refining your hypothesis about what you want to do next. This is the process. It's not a single dramatic moment of revelation. It's a quiet, deliberate, and empowering process of reducing uncertainty. It's about turning the giant, monstrous unknown into a series of small, manageable knowns. Ultimately, a career change in the 21st century American landscape is not about finding a new job. It is a profound act of self-reclamation. It is about refusing to let your life be defined by a decision you made when you were 20 years old. It is about understanding that your work, The thing that occupies 8 to 10 hours of your every day is not just a source of income. It is a primary driver of your well-being, your sense of purpose, and your personal evolution. The 5 signs are not a curse, they are a calling. They are a summons from a future version of yourself. A version that is more engaged, more fulfilled, and more aligned. A version of you that doesn't live for the weekend, but finds meaning and challenge in the work itself. The question is not whether you are ready to start over. The question is whether you are ready to integrate everything you are into everything you do. To stop segmenting your life into the work you and the real you. To build a career that is not just a ladder to climb, but a rich, complex, and deeply personal portfolio of experiences that, in the end, tells the incredible story of a life fully lived. That journey, that process of becoming, is the most important work you will ever do.